How do I rehabilitate you from what you have done? And I think that's a function of spinning your moral compass. I think your moral compass is askew. I think that it's something that it's not like getting a drug addict off drugs or an alcoholic off alcohol, but rehabilitation, I hope that occurs as part of this sentence. A big variable, and the one that's most conspicuous, is punishment. You impose a sentence to punish bad behavior, criminal behavior, and that's going to be a large component of this sentence. And also a valid factor in imposing a sentence is retribution. And retribution is giving society the vent, the outlet, the sense of that person got what he or she had coming. So I consider those factors and try to figure out what weighs most in tailoring a sentence for you. And it has to do with the facts of the case, and it has to do with who you are and what you were thinking. And here's the way I see it. I think that a lot of it is what were your motivations? What were you doing? What were you thinking when that was going on? And I just come to the most obvious conclusion that you were motivated by greed, by avarice. There's no evidence that you were being beaten and you were defending yourself, that you were a battered wife, that you were an alcoholic, that you were the victim of child abuse, that you were somehow acting in defense of yourself, even under a misguided notion. There's none of that here. All of your conduct was just for self-indulgence and just trying to take every bit of money that you could get a hold of so that you could go on and live this fast life. In as early as March, you began this relentless campaign to get rid of your husband. First, you're thinking, well, I'll just get him sent off to prison and that would be good enough. You used guile and sophistry to dupe others into your web of deception. You were the puppet master that was pulling all the strings. You weren't acting at the direction of somebody else. You weren't under the influence of somebody else. You were the one calling the shots. And you were engaged in a course of conduct not over some momentary lapse of good judgment. This wasn't like, I ran a red light, I shouldn't have done that. Or, what was I thinking? I had the gun in my hand and I shot it because I was angry. It was weeks and months that you continued with these different schemes to try to rid yourself of your husband that was just something out of a novel. And it was horrible to watch it unfold as the trial testimony came out. It was pure evil. After those attempts to have your husband taken out of the picture by way of sending him back to prison for a long period of time, and when you learned that it wasn't good enough to have the house in your name, that if you wanted to sell the house, you were still going to need his signature, I think that's when it started to turn to even more sinister behavior. Mr. Salnick indicates that, being remorseful or saying I'm sorry really doesn't mean anything. And I disagree. I think, even today, Mr. DiPolito, still your husband, I think that I'm sorry, it's my fault, I did it, would have gone a long way. Not only for his healing, but it would have perhaps suited your own purpose. But I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard an ounce of remorse. The opposite of that. When confronted with the obvious facts, the most powerful testimony as to who you are is when you were in the police station and your husband walked by and looked in and you were begging him, tell him this is all wrong, tell him this is all wrong. And then later on the telephone, you were saying, he was confronting you with the evidence. I saw the tapes. I saw the videotape of you trying to have me killed. And you just cold-bloodedly said to him, I saw what you saw, and I'm telling you that's not true. And it was astonishing, the cold-blooded denial that you're willing to go to try to avoid the obvious. You have a certain facet of who you are with your mom, your sister, your brother, and they see the good in you, as siblings and parents should. But who you are when no one's looking, other than a camera in a police car, is quite different. And I think that peers deeply into your soul and speaks volumes of the way you were presenting this, and it was quite chilling to witness that. Based upon those factors, then, Ms. DiPolito, I'll accept the verdict of the jury. I'll find you guilty. I'll adjudicate you guilty. And I'm sentencing you to 20 years in the Department of Corrections.
Dahlia's first encounter with retribution was a big one, yet it didn't last long. The sentence was thrown out on a technicality 1 month later, and she was able to remain under house arrest for 6 years awaiting her next trial. Her second trial began in 2016.
Dahlia DiPolito takes the stand with an unusual defense.
Dahlia says it was all part of a plan she hatched with her then-husband, Michael DiPolito, and former lover, Mohammed Shahadi, to get famous. Her now ex-husband, Mike DiPolito, says he couldn't wait to see what she'd say in court.
Let me know when she's going. I'll be sitting in the back with popcorn. I'd love to see this.
In an exclusive pretrial interview with 2020 this past December, DiPolito said she's just misunderstood.
Who is Dahlia DiPolito?
Understanding, sweet, and compassionate.
Manipulative, conniving. I got more than 3. Malicious.
Baited, enticed, and entrapped.
Her attorney, Brian Claypool, says Dahlia is the innocent victim of a fame-hungry police department.
What the police department did is they found out she's an attractive woman. In their minds, they're like ching, ching, ching. This is a perfect skit. There's no question about it that the Boynton Beach Police Department was dead set on manufacturing a crime here.
How damaging are these tapes to your client?
They are damaging because people have formed opinions.
Our job in the second trial is to provide the proper context for the jury to see that this is not really what it looks like.
Claypool claims she only kept up the act because Mohammed threatened her with a gun.
He threatened to hurt me and to hurt my family.
Did you believe he would?
Absolutely, yes.
So she was threatened to act out a hoax on a videotape? I mean, do you understand how ridiculous that sounds to a lot of people watching this?
Yeah, that's not ridiculous. You've got a 6'2", 230-pound man with a gun
saying you will do this
absolutely
YouTube hoax or else?
Right.
5,000% sure, not 100% sure, not 1,000% sure, but 5,000% sure. How do you explain that?
I look at that video and I see somebody who's struggling with whether she's really sure.
She's struggling? What?
Why? Well,
how is she struggling if she's 5,000% sure?
Well, you might find that humorous, but when I hear people say they're sure, I'm 110% sure.
Why didn't she just tell police her version of what happened?
I've asked her that question too. Oh, yeah, everybody. Hey, Sergeant, this was just a YouTube thing we were putting together. She was in a state of shock.
I couldn't react. I just completely froze. I wanted to get out of there and I felt just paralyzed. The tape was a show. It was a tape. That was the purpose of it.
You were acting in those tapes?
Yes.
But you're telling the truth now?
Yes.
Why should we believe you?
Because it's what happened. It's the truth.
State of Florida versus Dahlia A. DiPolito, defendant. Verdict. We, the jury, find as follows. As to count 1, we find the defendant guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder as charged in the information. So say we all, the 16th day of June, 2017, in West Palm Beach.
Dahlia DiPolito was sentenced to 16 years in prison on July 21, 2017. She was not given the possibility of parole, and her release date is set for August 24, 2032. Her appeal was rejected by the Florida Supreme Court in September of 2019, and her sentence is now definitive. She is currently being held at the Lowell Correctional Institution in Gainesville, Florida, where she is expected to remain until the day of release. She will be 50 years old.
If your crazy prostitute wife that you gave your house to tries to get you thrown in jail on drug charges and then tries to pay someone to murder you, it's got to be somewhat satisfying to have that person call and ask you for help. It's like, I really need your help. And you're like, yeah, I bet you do. But you tried to kill me.
I spit it from my block, it's an ode. I admit it here, the city code is lock and load. Any minute it's rock and roll, and you rock and roll. so leaving. It's just the wrong glance that'll leave you.
I've been thinking to make with my hands by myself a wooden puppet. Pinocchio, try say something.
Babbo.
I have a son! My son is born!
From one day to the next.
What do you mean from one day? From 1 minute to the next? Watch me, eh? And 1 and 2. If you do like me, in 2 or 3 days you'll be walking by your...
Pinocchio!
He's a puppet like us! Who are you?
Pinocchio.
I know a certain place called the Field of Miracles. Put him in prison!
How come in prison? What's going on with my nose?
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the Donkey Pinocchio!
Babbo.
Pinocchio.
How did you grow up?
It's a secret, you know.
I don't want to be a puppet. I want to become a boy like all the others.